They say beauty is something you create, something you build with your hands, shape with your vision, and present to the world like a gift wrapped in silk and ambition. But I never thought beauty could be a mirror. I never thought it could reveal the truth hiding inside my own family. My name is Amelia. I was 19 years old when it all started, and for as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with fashion. Not just the clothes themselves, but what they represent. Transformation. Identity. The way a single piece of fabric can make someone feel powerful, beautiful, seen. I'd spent years dreaming of becoming a fashion entrepreneur. Someone who didn't just follow trends but created them. Someone who understood that fashion wasn't about vanity. It was about giving people permission to be who they truly are. That dream felt closer than ever the day I decided to launch my online catalog. My first real step into the world I'd been preparing for my entire life. But I had a problem. I needed a mannequin. I needed beautiful dresses, shoes, heels. I needed resources I didn't have and a model I couldn't afford. What I didn't know was that the solution was already sitting at my breakfast table. And this would uncover a secret that would change how I saw my family forever. I thought I was designing my first collection, but I ended up with a living mannequin, and a truth I still can't forget. Before we dive in, please hit that subscribe button and join the Gender Diary family for more heartfelt stories about discovery, transformation, and love. And I'd love to know, what time and country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. It always makes my day to see where our stories reach. Please watch till the end. Every story holds a moment worth feeling. Let me take you back to where it all began. I was born into a family of 5. My mom, who has this gentle way of making you feel like everything will be okay, even when it won't. My dad, who's equal parts practical and playful, always ready with a joke that cuts through tension like butter. My elder sister Ellie, who's 21 and effortlessly confident in a way I've always envied. And then there's Daniel. Daniel is 16, the youngest, the quietest. He's always been the artistic one in the family, the one who could spend hours sketching in his notebook or listening to music no one else understood. We all loved him, of course. But I don't think any of us really saw him. Not fully. That particular weekend started like any other. Saturday morning. The kitchen filled with the smell of scrambled eggs and toast. The sound of clinking plates and Dad's terrible puns. Mom refilling coffee mugs. Ellie scrolling through her phone, half listening to the conversation. And me sitting there with my head full of dreams and my pockets full of nothing. I remember the sunlight coming through the kitchen window, hitting the table at just the right angle, making everything look softer, warmer. Like we were inside a memory that hadn't happened yet. That morning felt normal, until Dad said the one sentence that would change everything. After breakfast, when everyone was settling into their lazy weekend rhythms, I knew it was time. If I was going to make this catalog happen, I needed help. Real help. So I gathered my courage and asked. I explained my vision. How I wanted to create an online portfolio showcasing my designs. How this was my first real step toward the future I'd been dreaming about. How I needed a mannequin, money for dresses, shoes, heels, lighting equipment. And one by one, they responded. Dad said he'd support me financially. Not much, but enough to get started. Mom promised me access to her wardrobe and anything else I might need. Ellie offered to help with photography and styling. Then I looked over at Daniel. He was sitting on the couch, trying to look invisible the way he always did. But I wasn't about to let him off that easy. I asked him what he could contribute. He smiled, that nervous, slightly guilty smile he gets when he's caught off guard, and said, "Where do you expect me to get money from?" We all laughed. It was one of those warm family moments where everything feels safe and simple. And then Dad, without thinking, without knowing what he was about to set in motion, said, "Why don't you become your sister's mannequin?" The room went quiet for just a second. Then everyone laughed again, louder this time, like it was the funniest joke they'd heard all week. Everyone except me. Because in that moment, in that laughter, I heard something else. I heard possibility. I heard the kind of idea that doesn't just solve a problem. It creates something entirely new. I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. His slim frame, his delicate features, the way he always seemed slightly uncomfortable in his own skin, like he was wearing a costume that didn't quite fit. And I thought, why not? What started as a joke turned into a decision. And that decision turned into a transformation none of us expected. The moment the idea took hold, I couldn't sit still. My mind was already racing through possibilities. What would I dress him in? How would I style his hair? What makeup would bring out his features? Ashman. I stood up from the table, maybe a little too quickly, and announced that we were doing this. Right now. Today. Daniel looked surprised, but he nodded. There was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. Nervousness, maybe, or curiosity, or something deeper I wasn't ready to recognize yet. I rushed to my room, my heart pounding with creative adrenaline. I grabbed my makeup kit, the one I'd been building for years, filled with foundations and brushes and palettes I'd saved up for. I grabbed my portable mirror, and then I went to my closet. I knew exactly which dress I wanted to use. It was a piece I'd been saving for something special. A short, off-shoulder bodycon dress. White as fresh linen, with a delicate yellow floral pattern scattered across it like sunshine captured in fabric. The design was ruched, meant to hug every curve from the bust down to the hem. Feminine. Elegant. Playful. When I held it up to the light, it looked like summer itself had been sewn into clothing. I grabbed a pair of delicate heels from my shoe rack. Nude-colored, with a modest heel height. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to lengthen the legs and change the posture. Then I took a breath and headed back downstairs. When I returned to the living room, I found that Ellie had already started preparing. She had moved furniture, cleared space near the window where the natural light was best. She'd even set up her phone on a tripod for photos. The whole family was watching now, smiling, curious about what was about to happen. And there was Daniel, standing in the middle of the room, arms at his sides, looking both nervous and strangely ready. I told him to stand still. The moment he did, something in me shifted. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a practical solution to my mannequin problem. It wasn't just a fun family project. It was something sacred. Something transformative. My mannequin had a heartbeat. I started with his face. I asked him to sit down, to relax, to trust me. He did, though I could see his hands and the curiosity in his eye. I've done makeup numerous times before. On myself, on friends, on mannequins that didn't breathe or blink or wonder what they were becoming. But this was different. Every brushstroke felt weighted with meaning. I began with primer, smoothing it gently across his skin. His face was already smooth, naturally soft in a way most boys his age aren't. The primer created a flawless base, catching the light like porcelain. Then foundation. I chose a shade that matched his skin tone perfectly, blending it with a damp beauty sponge until there were no edges, no lines. Just seamless, even coverage that made his skin look luminous. I added concealer under his eyes, brightening the shadows there. A touch of powder to set everything in place. Then came the color. Blush. Just a whisper of it across his cheekbones. A soft, peachy pink that made him look sun-kissed and alive. I blended it carefully, building it up slowly, watching as warmth bloomed across his face. Highlighter next. A delicate shimmer along his cheekbones. Down the bridge of his nose, at the cupid's bow of his lips. Light catching light, creating dimension where there had been flatness. His eyes were next. I kept it natural, soft, a neutral brown in the crease for definition. A lighter shade on the lid. A thin line of eyeliner, barely there, just enough to make his lashes look fuller. And then mascara. I asked him to look up as I carefully coated each lash, lengthening them, making his eyes look bigger, more expressive. When he blinked, I saw something change. A flutter of recognition, maybe, or surprise. His lips were the final touch on his face. I chose a nude pink lipstick, something that enhanced, rather than transformed. Natural, but elevated. I applied it carefully, then added a touch of clear gloss in the center of his bottom lip for dimension. When I stepped back to look at him, I felt my breath catch. He looked beautiful. Not in a way that erased who he was, but in a way that revealed something that had always been there, hidden just beneath the surface. But we weren't done yet. I asked him to stand up. He did, unsteady at first, like he was testing the ground beneath new feet. I brought out the dress. The white bodycon with its yellow floral pattern looked even more perfect than I'd imagined when I held it up against him. The off-shoulder design would frame his collarbones beautifully. The ruching would create the illusion of curves. I handed it to him and pointed him toward the bathroom to change. He took the dress from my hands like it was made of glass. The minutes he was gone felt eternal. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could feel the family's anticipation filling the room like a held breath. And then the bathroom door opened. He stepped out, and the room went silent. The dress fit him perfectly. The off-shoulder sleeves rested against his arms like whispers against skin. The ruche fabric hugged his frame, creating soft, feminine curves where his natural form was straight. The white and yellow looked ethereal against his skin tone, like he was glowing from within. But it wasn't just the dress. It was the way he was standing, the way he was holding himself, like he'd found something he didn't know he'd been looking for. I approached him slowly, adjusting the neckline, smoothing the dress around his waist, making sure the ruching framed him perfectly. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. Then came the shoes, the delicate nude heels I'd chosen. I asked him to sit down, and I carefully helped him slip them on. They fit remarkably well. When he stood up again, he was taller. His posture had changed. His legs looked longer, more elegant. I began teaching him how to pose, how to stand with one foot slightly in front of the other, creating a natural curve to his body, how to rest his weight on one hip, how to keep his shoulders back but relaxed, how to hold his arms naturally at his sides, or crossed gently, or raised gracefully, how to tilt his chin just slightly upward, catching the light, how to breathe softly, keeping his body fluid rather than stiff, how to find stillness without becoming frozen. He listened to every word like it was a language he'd been trying to learn his whole life. And with each adjustment, each small correction, I watched him transform. Not just physically, but in some deeper, indefinable way. His eyes, which had always looked slightly distant, suddenly seemed focused, present. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, I stepped back to look at the full picture. Daniel stood in the center of the living room, bathed in natural light, wearing a white and yellow floral dress and nude heels, his face gently made up, his posture graceful and feminine. He looked at me, waiting for direction, waiting for approval, and I told him to smile. But he didn't. He just looked at me with these wide, vulnerable eyes. And in that moment, I realized something that made my chest tighten and my breath catch. There was nothing to fix, nothing to adjust or correct or improve. He already looked complete, more complete than I'd ever seen him before. The rest of that afternoon passed like a dream. Ellie took photos from every angle. Mom kept bringing us snacks and drinks, beaming with pride. Dad made jokes but kept staring at Daniel like he was seeing him for the first time. And Daniel became someone else. Or maybe he became more himself than he'd ever been allowed to be. I directed him through different poses. Standing by the window, the light creating a halo effect around him. Sitting on the arm of the couch, legs crossed elegantly, leaning against the wall, looking over his shoulder with an expression that was both confident and soft. With each click of Ellie's camera, I watched him grow more comfortable, more natural. The nervousness had faded. In its place was something I can only describe as grace. Hours passed. The sun shifted across the sky, changing the quality of light in the room from bright afternoon to warm golden hour. Eventually, we took a break. Ellie went to charge her phone. Mom and Dad went to start dinner preparations. It was just Daniel and me in the living room, sitting on the couch, catching our breath. That's when he spoke. His voice was soft, hesitant, but there was something underneath it, something brave. He said, "I like it, more than I thought I would." I looked at him, waiting for him to continue. He took a breath, then said, "The dress, the makeup, all of it. It feels comfortable. More comfortable than I expected. More comfortable than..." He trailed off, but I understood what he wasn't saying. More comfortable than the clothes he usually wore. More comfortable than the identity he'd been performing for 16 years. He continued, his words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. "You always looked so free in what you wore. I never knew clothes could feel like this. Soft, breathable, like being allowed to breathe differently." He looked down at the dress, running his fingers over the ruched fabric. "I've always felt like I was wearing a costume," he said quietly. "Like I was playing a character that everyone expected me to play. But this," he gestured to himself, to the dress, to everything. "This doesn't feel like a costume. It feels like permission." I finally understood. It wasn't the makeup or the dress that had changed him. It was the permission. Permission to be soft. to be beautiful, to exist in a way that felt true rather than expected. And I had given him that, even if I hadn't fully realized what I was doing at the time. That weekend became something none of us could have predicted. What started as a one-time project turned into an ongoing celebration. Daniel volunteered for more looks, different dresses, different styles, different expressions of femininity. A long, flowing sundress in soft lavender. A sleek black cocktail dress with a plunging neckline. A casual denim skirt with a tucked-in white blouse. Each transformation was its own revelation. The family embraced it completely. Ellie started treating it like a full fashion shoot, directing lighting and backdrops. Mom brought out jewelry and accessories we'd forgotten we had. Dad, despite his initial jokes, became Daniel's biggest cheerleader, complimenting every outfit and encouraging him to try more daring looks. We laughed, we took dozens of photos. We turned my catalog project into something bigger, something more meaningful. But beneath all the laughter and creativity, I felt something growing inside me, something I couldn't quite name. I started noticing things I'd never noticed before. The way Daniel's shoulders relaxed when he wore a dress, as if he was finally allowed to put down a weight he'd been carrying. The way his smile became more genuine, less performative. The way he moved through space differently, not with the stiff, uncertain gait of a teenage boy trying to take up as little room as possible, but with fluidity and grace. The way he looked at himself in the mirror with something that looked like recognition, like he was finally meeting himself for the first time. I thought I was teaching him how to stand still, how to pose, how to be a mannequin for my designs. But he was teaching me something far more important. He was teaching me how to see. Because when you truly see someone, not just look at them, but really see them, see past the surface to the truth underneath, you can't unsee it. And once I saw Daniel for who he really was, I couldn't pretend I didn't know. The mannequin wasn't a creation, it was a revelation. When I look back at that weekend now, months later, I see it differently than I did in the moment. I thought I was launching my fashion catalog. I thought I was taking my first step toward becoming an entrepreneur. I thought I was solving a practical problem, how to showcase my designs without spending money I didn't have. But that's not what I was doing at all. I was giving my brother permission to exist, permission to explore parts of himself he'd kept hidden, permission to be beautiful in a way that felt true to him, permission to breathe differently, to move differently, to see himself differently. I didn't transform him into art. I gave him permission to exist. And maybe that's what art truly is. Not creation, but revelation. Not imposing beauty, but uncovering it. Revealing the beauty that was always there, waiting patiently for someone to be brave enough to see it. My online catalog launched a few weeks later. The photos of Daniel became the centerpiece of my portfolio. They were stunning, not because of my styling or my vision, but because of the truth they captured. The truth of someone finally being allowed to be themselves. The response was overwhelming. People commented on the beauty, the artistry, the unique approach. But they were seeing more than they realized. Fashion isn't just about clothes. It isn't about trends or aesthetics or commercial success. It's about giving people permission. Permission to be who they are. Permission to express themselves without apology. Permission to exist in their full, complicated, beautiful truth. That's what I learned from Daniel. If you've ever seen someone differently, not because they changed, but because you finally looked, then you know what transformation really means. It's about recognition, about permission, about love brave enough to see the truth and hold it gently. If this story resonated with you, leave a heart in the comments. If you believe that beauty is just truth, seen in its gentlest form, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep revealing beauty, keep seeing truth, keep giving permission. This is Amelia, signing off from the Gender Diary. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.